Hi, my name is Henry Chen, and I'm one of the tech developers for this Respirator game. And I mainly worked on the main parent script for all the mini games at the very beginning. I created all the original minigame function script that all these other minigame scripts inherited from. So all these minigame scripts used to all inherit from one script that I made. But later on, my team made a breath controller script, which was an improved version of my original script because that one was just used for prototypes. But yeah, my second largest role in this project was the minigame scripts for both fishing and sailboat. So here. I'm going to show you what the sailboat script and fishing script looks like, and I'll go over what these two scenes has to offer. So first we got the fishing script. This is the fishing scene, and I will explain the scene first. So as you can see here, there is fish in the water. All this is in a 2D space. As you can see here, the camera is just looking at it on 2D, and every single one of these objects has a layer count. For example, this raccoon is on order layer 4. The higher the number, the further in front towards the camera it is. So if you want anything to show up behind something, like for example, the boat has to be in front of the raccoon, this would be in layer 5. The fish is layer 3 because it's behind both both the boat and the raccoon, and in the background is 0 because it's in the very back. And all of these have different layers, as you can see here, and basically the only dynamic assets in this project or in this scene is this fishing line render, which it's a line render inside Unity that it basically creates a line. Yeah, and you can choose like how thick you want it to be, and in the script I make it so that it stretches, so it acts like a rope. But essentially, this just creates a line. It's very, very simple. And yeah, there's different things you can do with it, but right now it's just a white line. And you can see the layers also over here too. And basically, I have this inherited onto the fishing line object. So in the script, I would call in the fishing line's object in order to call the fishing line render, but that will be all done in the script, so nothing to worry about here. But yeah, basically, the fishing hook and the fishing line are all part. The fishing line render are all part of the fishing line, so that's why they're all under this object. It's just so that if I have like inside the script where I want both the line and the hook to move, this way I can just change fishing line within the script, like change the size or something like that, and it will change both the hook and the line. It's just how the script works. And as for the fishes, I have a separate script that I made for the fish, which is over here. And if you look over here, this is the fish movement script. This one is a separate script that moves the fish, and basically what it does is it moves the fishes back and forth randomly in different speeds, random speeds. Alright, so now I'll show you guys how my fishing game would work. And to demonstrate this, I need to start from the title screen, which is over here in the title screen folder. And when you press play, it will show you the menu screen, and you go to settings, and then you can choose a different type of breathing and also which game you want to play. And in this case, I'm going to show you fishing. We're going to make it 1 second for each and 1 rep, but I'll make it 3 reps just so you can see the different types of fish that you can fish, and we'll keep it at purse lips. And if you click done and press play, you can now play the game. You have to play this runner before you can run into a mini game. As you can see, there you go. Gotta do your breathing exercises. Sooner or later, we'll run into an obstacle that is like a pond or something, and we'll hop into the fishing game. I'll skip to when I get to that, so you don't have to see me play this game over and over. Alright, so as you can see, we're coming up to the pond, and bam, we're now in the fishing mini game. Alright, so you see there's a lot of fishes swimming around, like before, what I was talking about. And you can always add more fish if you really want to, but I think this is like pretty okay already. I'll show you guys how to do that in a bit. And basically here, we gotta inhale, and then once after we inhale, this line will go down to the bottom. The line renderer will make a line that stretches all the way to the bottom, and then when I exhale, it'll come all the way back up with a fish on it. And it's random, but you know, sometimes you'll get the same fish again over and over. But I assure you, it's like 1/3 chance. Alright, here we go. So inhale, goes down, exhale, there's the fish, and we do it again. Boom. Different fish. Yep. 3 different fish. And you get a score and you finish. And then you go back to the game. But yeah, that's basically what it is. And if you can see over here, let me go back to that scene. Yeah, so if you guys ever wanted to add more fish, you can just literally copy and paste. And then as you can see, it's this one. You can make it bigger, smaller, however you want. And you can also change whichever fish you want to use right over here in the select sprite menu. And you just choose one of the 3. Or in the future, if you add in more fish, you can also create your own sprite and import it in here. You'd probably import it into art, and then into fishing, and then you can put it over here. Make sure you want to, after you add it in, you want to change it to sprite 2D and UI right here, or else you can't use it. And yeah, you can always add more fish here, and then you can always change this to different fish however you like. And the script should make it still random, but just keep them in the middle, towards the middle, because they go a certain distance out and then come back. And if you put them like too far to the left or too far to the right, it'll swim to like halfway and then go back all the way back and then go off screen. So just keep them in the middle, and then it should work just perfectly fine. Alright, so that's basically fishing, and now I'll demonstrate the other game, which is Sailboat. Sailboat's right over here. Alright, so for Sailboat, same thing. The only difference is that the boat is a little bit further away than back, and I actually didn't create this scene, someone else did. I just put it in the background and made the script, and I'm not sure why they but our camera is looking from this side, which is interesting. But anyway, obviously you can still see the ship, even though it's behind this background. But yeah, if you want to put in like a different ship, just put it back here. As you can see, the background is made up of 3 sections: sky, greenery, and water. and this canvas is about there's 3 hat sets for every type, because it's not long enough if we use only one. So that's why you see here there's 1, 2, 3, and there's 3 for each one. Once again, if you want to put in new stuff, just go to the art section and go to sailboat, and there's the sailboat stuff over here, right over here. You can add in new stuff, do the same thing where you make sure it's a sprite 2D and UI, and you should be good. And yeah, same thing. There's also orders here, order in layer 3, order layer 1, and an order layer 0. I believe the sailboat is 4. Yep. Once again, the one you want to see in the front, you put it as the highest number. And yeah, if you want to create a longer canvas, you could copy and paste this and make it even longer, but I think this should be good. But yeah, if you click on this, you can move entire segments instead of just one. Because all these 3 things are all under greenery, so if you move greenery, then you'll move everything at the same time. That's why we have it like ordered like this. But yeah, over here in the inspector, you can see that we have scripts for the background in order to make it look more 3D, give the parallax effect. I believe someone else worked on this, so I'm not sure how to explain these 2 scripts, but I will explain the script for this game afterwards. Alright, so for the sailboat, it's actually made of I think the sailboat, everything is actually attached to the sailboat, which is interesting. I created the script, so I actually don't I actually don't know who set up the scene, but anyway, the sailboat has 2 different parts. It has the sails and the actual sailboat itself, the base and the sails. And the reason why I do this is because when the person breathes, when the player breathes, inhales, exhales, inhale, the sails will shrink, and when they exhale, it will expand and signify that, like, you know, it's catching wind and it's moving. All that will be done inside the sailboat script, so I'll explain that to you guys in a bit. And yeah, basically every single one of our scenes has like a game manager, it has the visualizer UI, has the scoreboard. All these can just be copy and pasted into different scenes. You can just Control C and then go to a different scene and Control V. But yeah, another person created those, and we just used them all for every single level. And I'm sure someone else will explain that. Every scene has a directional light. The fishing one had it too. And the canvas is for the UI stuff. All the UI stuff will be shown up on the canvas right over there. But yeah, now I will demonstrate how this game works. And I'm going to go back to the title scene and do the exact same thing. Alright, so here we go again. And same thing, we go over here, switch to sailboat. We're going to do 3 reps. And it's going to be purse lips. Alright, I will skip to the part where I actually play the game. So I should cut to it sooner or later. Alright. So we're about to hit the sailboat game. There we go. We are in. as you can see, the sailboat's in the right side of the screen and you want to move to the left. And essentially, when I inhale, the sails will open, and when I exhale, the boat will move forward based on how much I've held when I inhale. And the sails will expand to signify that it's catching wind. So as you can see here, I'm gonna inhale, exhale, boom. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. There we go. Very simple. But yeah. So, in order to navigate all this stuff, most of the anything that is minigame related will be in the minigames folder. It'll be in scenes in order to access the scenes. Any of the assets that we use within these minigames would be in the minigames, art, and in whatever folder corresponds to the minigame we are talking about. And so if you look at scenes, new game, or new minigame, it is right here. That's where the sailboat is. Same with fishing, right over here. As for the assets, you go over here. There's the sailboat stuff. And here's the fishing stuff. Very simple. But here, some issues I found when I was doing this, if you spam it too hard, there might be some like issues in whatever step you on, but honestly, it's probably not a problem. We've been stress testing for a bit, so it should be good. But now it's time to move on to the script. And as you can see here, for fishing, this is the fish movement script. All the comments explain what each section of the code does. And this movement script is attached to every single one of the fish types. These are all the little fishes that swim around. And you can set the minimum speed and the maximum speed. If you set it too high, then that means some fishes could potentially move really fast. So just try to keep it under 0.5 unless you really want to make it fast. And 0.1 min speed, you can make it even slower, but I found 0.1 to be like a good sweet spot in between. Movement range 10, that's just how much it moves across the screen. If you did like 20, it would move off the screen and then come back and then move all the way off screen again and then come back. So I think 10 is good as long as you keep it in the center. Otherwise, you could make it bigger if you really wanted to. And every single one of these fish already have this script. That's why I said, like, if you want to add in new fish, you can just copy and paste the ones that are already here. So you don't have to attach the script or anything. It's already done for you. And yeah, so basically, to explain the code, right here, this first section, I'm setting up all the variables, the minimum speed, maximum speed. These are all public, so that's why you can see them in here in the inspector. It's because those variables are public. It's default set at 2, but since I already set it in the inspector as 0.5, that's why it shows up as 0.5 and it doesn't show up as 2. You could change it here and then save it, and then it'll change over there as well. But you can honestly just change it in the inspector and it'll have no issues. This variable has the initial exposition of the fish. This is the speed of the fish. This is the random offset, so that the fish will move randomly in random directions. This is the current direction. This is just within the script, this is to check which direction the fish is currently facing, and I believe 1 is default right. So every fish is default right at the beginning, and it will set it later on if they happen to spawn in facing the other direction. And then this is just to reference the fish sprite render. So here we store the initial X position of the fish. We use random.range to randomize the speed, and we have min speed and max speed right here. So it'll generate a random number in between min and max to give us our speed for the fish. This random offset gives you a random offset within a full circle, and basically makes it so that the fish is it's facing in a random direction, either left or right, and it won't be in the same exact place every time. This is to get the sprite renderer component, and then this is to figure out initially where is this fish, so we can just determine how much offset we want and how much it needs to move. Current direction, at the very beginning, some of the fish could spawn in facing the other direction, like I said. So this will determine if it's facing right or is it facing left. And whatever it is how we're going to determine its initial position. Or initial direction, rather. This is to flip the sprite, because if it's facing right side, then when it reaches to the end, it needs to flip left to go in the opposite direction. So this just tells us if we need to flip it over the Y, when we need to flip it over the Y, depending on which direction it's going. In this update method, we are constantly changing or calculating the current position of the fish. So this just calculates using math to figure out where the target location of this sprite is. And basically we move the fish using transformed opposition with new vector 3s. And then we also check if the direction changes, so we know we have to flip the fish sprite depending on if it's going back or if it's going left or going right. So this just checks if it did switch, then we'll have to flip the sprite. And this is the method that does that. But yeah, that's basically the fish movement script. Very simple. Here is the actual minigame script for fishing. And as you can see, it inherits from Breath Controller, which is right not over here. I believe where is Breath Controller? Here. Breath Controller is right here. This is the code that has all the presetted variables that every single minigame will inherit. Every single one of these variables are inherited by the other minigames, so that way you don't have to rewrite all of this just to make a new minigame script. We can just inherit this, gain all the information that it has in here and all the different code and logic, and then we won't have to do it again over here. But I believe one of the other tech devs will probably explain this one. So I'll move on to the fishing. Basically, you don't need to touch this, but if you want to add new parameters that every minigame should have, then we would access Breath Controller. So within minigame fishing, we have our initial variables that we initialize here. We have the game object fishing hook, which is the thing I talked about earlier, which is in fishing line right here. And then we have the line render that I was talking about earlier, right over here, this thing. And then we have the rigid body which is just the sprite body, the sprite collision basically. And then we have 3 private variables that we all serialize the field. So if you look over here, I believe it's in Game Manager. Yes. So yeah, if you look over here, you have fishing hook, fishing line, you got fish, and we got the different sounds. Everything here is the stuff that I put that were originally from this script that you can change in Inspector. And yeah, as you can see here, sprite renderer fish, top hook, bottom hook, and then the array. They're all over here. Everything, all the serialized field variables can be seen in the inspector, and then you can change it accordingly by just dragging it from the project into. You can drag it into the slot, and then it'll take that. It'll plug that or that asset into the variable. So here I initialize the 2 variables for cast sound, real sound. You can always change this by, like I said, going into minigame, getting audio. Here we go, sailboat, or not sailboat, fishing, and you can put new ones in here and then drag it in if you want a different sound effect. Here we initialize the 2 booleans to determine if it's caught or casting. This is for later on for the logic, and default it's false. And on start, we want to get the sprite collision or the component. We want to get the position of the top hook, the top of the hook, and because the top of the hook is where it initially starts. Want to know where that is. We want to make sure there's no sprite at the beginning, because the fish sprite is actually always attached to the hook. We just make it invisible, so there's nothing there. So when the player goes down and fishes, it gives them the illusion of actually catching a fish when we're just making it reappear. This is to set up the audio source. So this will add in an audio source, and later on we can put in music and sound effects. Without this, you can't do it. In the update section, we first set position of the fishing line, and then we lerp the fishing hook to the bottom hook position. So if you inhale, we will extend the fishing line. We'll extend it to the bottom hook position, which we've set previously, which is like at the bottom of the screen. You can always change this as well inside the inspector, right over here. Bottom hook position, 2.16, -5. You can always see where that is by just clicking on the hook, and you can see which position you want it to be. And basically it'll lerp to the bottom right over here. We want to clear the fish when casting, so every time when you reel it back and then you want to inhale again, it'll clear the fish, so it looks like you collected the fish. This is also to reset the caught flag. Later on we have a flag where it checks if the fish is caught or not, and this just resets that. This is just for debugging purposes. And if you are casting, play the sound effect, because there's a casting sound effect that I added. So if you're casting, play the sound effect and then set it to true. That means so now the game knows that you are casting. And then if you're exhaling, set casting to false, so the game knows you're not casting anymore. And in turn, you return the line render back to its top hook position, which is at the very beginning where your hook was to begin with. and then we check if you caught a fish. And since you will catch a fish when you're exhaling, we'll randomize the fishes within the three fishes that I plugged into the array for earlier. You can always add more fish that you want to randomize, like just like this. Go over here. You see there's fish sprites. There's 3 elements. You can change this number, add more, and you can plug it in. Just add more and then plug it in. Very simple. And then once you caught one, we set it to true, so the game knows that you did catch a fish. And then we'll play the reeling sound. And this is just for debugging. And lastly, when you finish your exercise, then we activate our UI. But yeah, that's basically the fishing script. Very simple. Basically, to summarize, when you inhale, your hook goes from top to bottom. It lerps at the bottom. And then we check if you are casting. If you're casting, then we will give you, we'll change the sprite to false, because when you're casting, we don't want to show the fish. It's only when you're inhaling or exhaling. When you reel it back, then we'll change it to true, so you can have a fish on your hook. And then once you finish exhaling, lerping just means it'll go from one place to another. So when you exhale, the hook will lerp from bottom to the top again, simulating you reeling back the fishing line. Now we move on to the sailboat. For the sailboat code, it is basically very similar to the duck minigame. So if you have already seen the duck minigame explanation, it's basically the same thing. The only difference is we have another part of this code that changes the scale of the scales of the sail. Yeah. Because when I inhale, the sails shrink. We have to do another section of this code that talks about the sails and if they get bigger or smaller. And over here we state all our variables just like usual. It inherited from breath controller. We set the scale rate right here. We initialize all the objects, the component, the audio source, and the original sail scale. So the game knows that the sail is originally what size. Because within this code, when you inhale, it shrinks, and when you exhale, it has to return back to the original scale. And over here, that saves it so we can use it for later. So if you inhale, we'll change the scale of the sail based on how long you've held it. And we make sure that it's capped so it doesn't shrink too much. And then we'll set the transform to its new scale. And if you exhale, we'll grow it back. We'll increase the size, but it cannot go past the original size. It says it's right here, and that's what we set over here for. And when you complete, the visualizer disappears, which is the circle that you saw earlier with the expanding and closing circle. This is the same exact stuff from the duck. This is just to check which step you're on. Inhale, exhale, hold. Depending on if it's pursed lipped or box breathing. And this should be exactly the same as the duck minigame. So check the documentation for the duck minigame. And once we finish all the steps, return the sail to the original scale in order to make sure that there's no funny business going on if it accidentally skips a step or something. And over here, when you're exhaling, it just moves the sailboat forward by a certain amount. You can always change this, and whatever direction you want to go, you can also change that too. But yeah, very simple. When you exhale, it moves forward. That's basically it. When you inhale, you store some numbers. When you exhale, you add force. That's it. And that's basically the two scripts that I developed for the two mini games. A lot of my work was at the very beginning when I was making the original scripts for all the mini games, but that has been improved on multiple times. So I don't even recognize the new scripts anymore. But yeah, in the future you could have added more sound effects, maybe for the fish swimming. That can always be done here, and it maybe attached to the original minigame script. Actually, you would probably attach it to the fish movement script. Makes a little bit more sense because it's affecting the fish, and that script affects the fishes directly. You could make, like, for example, the fish tugging on the line, but you would just have to change like where the start of the line would be, and then have it attached to one of the fishes maybe. So the code will always check where the fishing hook end is. But that might be a tad bit difficult, but it shouldn't be too difficult. But yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully this was insightful enough for you guys to help, for you guys to understand how these mini games work. Thank you for listening.